Now, Madam Wu and Mr. Yang, what is the reason that led to the killing of 2,300 people in India? I mean, what's the reason behind the super hot weather there?
I think the very intense heat wave definitely is the cause of the deaths in India, which is really unfortunate. If you put that heat wave in the global context of global warming, so we all know very, very clearly, and which is unfortunate actually. The global warming has been intensifying, which causes extreme weathers like the heat wave experienced actually in India. And Indian case is just one of the many cases that we are witnessing today. Basically saying, if you continue to emit more global warming, greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, and the global warming intensity will continue, and which will basically causing more severe climate change extreme weathers like the one we're experiencing now.
Mr. Yang, are we 100% sure that this is definitely effects of a global warming and El Nino event that produces impact upon the people and the death toll?
Yeah, based on the IPCC fifth report, and the climate change is now used the term is very likely to be happened, and before they don't only use the likely, very likely. Now is a high, very likely. So this is give policy makers and all the people understand the awareness of the climate change have a very strong impact on the extreme weather, on other natural events, have an impact on other human life. And because we lost the environment in the future, we human being is very hard to survive.
I'd like to know more about why and how people have been killed. 2,300 of them have been killed in India. We now cross over to MD Nalapat, who's standing by in New Delhi, for his comments on why, because this is alarming, absolutely a shock for observers around the world. Now, Professor Nalapat, I'm happy to be joined here by you. Now, tell me, do you think this tragedy would not have happened in Saudi Arabia, for example, where temperatures could be higher, much higher, simply because the Indians don't enjoy the decent working conditions, particularly air conditioners?
Well, it's also a question of nutrition, and it's also a question of public health. Now, in India, there is a large middle class, but there are also about 150 million people who are living in dire poverty. They have very low nutrition standards, and as a consequence, they are vulnerable whether to infections or to a kind of a heat wave, and it takes very little to tip them over the balance and very sadly to take their lives. So this problem of nutrition in India and this problem of a low degree of resistance to this kind of a situation is what explains the high death rate.
Professor Nalapat, 48 degrees is not that hot when compared with the Middle East, where summertime temperatures of 55 to 60 degrees are quite normal, quite common. The main difference, however, is that vast numbers of Indians have to work, I mean, most of them are construction workers, have to work without air conditioners. Do you think local media in your country has got extremely angry? Protests must have launched against the poor protection for the ordinary Indians. What do you think? What do you think of the response from the local government?
Well, the local government response has not been very significant, but the reality is the local government can also do very little. One of the main problems India is facing is extensive deforestation. Now, for example, each time we use a piece of paper, we are also contributing to deforestation. So forests in India have been cut down at an alarming rate. Now this is creating a problem. The second problem India faces is it is dependent largely on coal for its energy. For at least the next 15 or 20 years, India is going to be heavily dependent on coal for its energy requirements. So these are multiple problems which do not admit of a simple solution.
And a third devastating factor that may have contributed to the rise in temperature is the overpopulation in your country. Do you think your government is considering proactively family planning policy like what we did here in China?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen in India, for a simple reason that there was a family planning policy in 1976, and that was a kind of a compulsory policy, and that created so much of anger among the population that no government after that has gone in for this kind of a compulsory policy. The good news is that as education improves, people themselves voluntarily go in for smaller families. So in large parts of India, because education is improved, the family size is becoming smaller and the birth rate is falling. It's very interesting to note, the birth rate is highest in the poorest parts of India. The birth rate is highest in the most uneducated parts of India. So only the spread of education and the consequent spread of enlightenment about the need for small families is going to get the solution. It cannot be government policy, because in India the people will not accept a government policy that restricts families.